We all remember how the Twin Towers were destroyed on 9/11.
It's gone! The whole tower! Holy crap!
But there was a third huge skyscraper that collapsed that day. Unlike the Twin Towers, no plane hit Tower 7.
Building 7 is the smoking gun of 9/11.
Keep your eye on that building, it'll be coming down soon.
What could cause a seemingly sound 47-story building to collapse?
In the building, I heard explosions. Outside of the building, I heard explosions.
Could one use a controlled demolition on any building? Sure. Did it happen to WTC 7 on 9/11? No, it did not.
The official explanation is that ordinary fires caused its collapse. But if the official story is true, this is the first and only skyscraper in the world to have collapsed because of fire.
We're asking questions. We expect some answers.
Nearly 7 years on, and the final government report on the third tower has still not been published. We talk to witnesses who have become central figures in the controversy.
It hurts when you're being accused of mass murder.
And look at new evidence to unravel the last great mystery of 9/11.
3 words, man. Money, power, and control. That's really all it comes down to.
Now a group of architects, engineers and scientists who understand buildings say the official explanation that fires caused the collapse is impossible. They argue there must have been a controlled demolition.
I saw this building, which had never been hit by a plane, come crashing straight down. I must admit, I was taken aback as a physicist.
It is the most obvious example of controlled demolition with explosives.
Despite the collapse of Tower 7 making architectural history as the first skyscraper to collapse because of fire, all the steel from the 47-story skyscraper was taken away to be melted down. A new group has been set up bringing together architects and engineers from across the country that question the official explanation. Richard Gage is a member of the American Institute of Architects. He's been an architect in California for 20 years. He set up the group, Architects and Engineers for 9/11-Truth, which now has more than 390 professionals from around the world.
No steel frame high-rise building has ever collapsed due to fire, and we have over 100 examples from which to choose.
In 1991, a fire in a Philadelphia skyscraper raged for 18 hours, but it didn't collapse. In 2005, a 32-story building in Madrid burned for a whole day. There was a partial collapse, but the building remained standing. Tower 7 burned for 7 hours.
The Madrid building burned for 24 hours, and my understanding is that the steel around the perimeter was not fireproofed. In Building 7, we have a completely fireproofed building to 2 and 3 hours.
What's more, a series of experiments were carried out in these giant hangars in Cardington, Bedfordshire in the mid-1990s. They showed that steel buildings were more robust than previously thought.
The Cardington tests in the UK were exemplary in that the steel did not collapse as a result of these tests.
A purpose-built 8-story steel building was set on fire. For a short time, the steel reached temperatures of more than 1,000 degrees centigrade, far hotter than in Tower 7. Ceiling beams did sag, but no collapse was observed in any of the 6 experiments.
I'm deeply troubled by the collapse of Building 7, because if the official story is true, then what they're telling us is that our existing building codes, to which thousands of skyscrapers are currently designed with 2 and 3 hour fire protection, there's a serious problem.
The official investigators accept the fires in Tower 7 were never hot enough to melt steel. They think the steel was heated to about 600 degrees centigrade, crucially the temperature at which steel loses half its strength. According to the official investigators, the main fires were concentrated on floors 6 through to 13, except floor 10. And there were fires initially on some of the upper floors. A fire protection engineer who's joined the group says the fires were not severe.
The fires weren't burning on all the floors simultaneously. They were scattered about on the floors. And as they burn, they're going to move through the building, so it will certainly heat up some of the steel in an area. But then as it moves on, when it consumes the combustibles there, the chairs, the desk, the tables, whatever papers were there, then there's no longer any source of heat.
Some people have interpreted this anticipation of collapse as evidence that the fire department and others were planning its destruction.
Silverstein, a commercial real estate tycoon with international political connections, acquired a 99-year lease.
And the owner, Larry Silverstein, has also been accused of being part of a huge conspiracy to destroy the buildings. It all stems from a TV interview when he used the phrase, "pull it."
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull.
I ask every viewer to come to their own conclusion about the language Larry's using and the emphasis.
Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it.
My personal response to his comment is that he was involved in a decision to bring the building down. But who knows what he was thinking or saying. This is just speculation.
Critics say just 2 months before 9/11, Larry Silverstein took out a $3.5 billion insurance policy on the Twin Towers. A policy that would pay out in the event of a terrorist attack. But without this policy, Larry Silverstein would not have been able to buy the buildings, and the insurance was not just for terrorism. The insurance on Tower 7 dated from 1987 when it was built.
And you don't say, we made the decision to pull it, which refers to something. You wouldn't say that about a group of firemen. You would say, we made a decision to pull them out of the building.
At 5:21 p.m., Tower 7 finally collapses. The 47-story skyscraper and its contents are pulverized to dust.
The sixth grader can look at this building falling at virtually free-fall speed, symmetrically and smoothly, and see that it is not a natural process. Buildings that fall in natural processes fall to the path of least resistance. They don't go straight down through themselves.
Tower 7 was a large skyscraper. At 610 feet high, it had 47 floors, each the size of a football field. There were only a few places foundations could be put down because it was built over a subway and an electricity substation. So long beams were needed to take the weight of the building on the east side, on the right here, and it had to be reinforced on the 5th to 7th floors, and also between the 22nd and 24th floors. It had 81 columns, 57 columns around the edge, and 24 core columns inside.
In order for the perimeter to fall perfectly and symmetrically, which it pretty much does at Building 7, all of those columns have to be removed within a tenth of a second of each other. Fire cannot do that. Controlled demolition can.
A structural engineer who's joined Richard Gage's group says he can imagine 1 or 2 columns collapsing.
It is possible that you could have a local failure as a result of a connection failing. But the likelihood of that failure dragging the entire building in such a fashion that all the columns would fail at the same time is an impossibility.
Impossibility?
Yes.
Is it actually possible to have done a controlled demolition of a building like Building 7 and it to be occupied and no one to have seen anything?
In a screenplay, in a movie, something with Bruce Willis in it, maybe. In reality, no.
But the architect Richard Gage has an answer for that.
It's possible, although this is mere speculation, that the explosives could have been planted prior to each floor being remodeled, or during such remodeling, or even during the initial erection of the building.
So when would that be? What sort of dates would you get into for that?
The building was built in the 80s.
Really? I don't know what to say to that.
Mark Loiseau is not unbiased due to his very wealthy clientele. He also works for the federal government. He can't come out and say this is a controlled demolition if he doesn't want to lose many of his top clients.
And there's smoke on a lot of floors on the south side of the building. And I saw fire coming out some of these windows. And that, through my experience of taking fire photography for the last 30 years, to me that's an indication of extremely heavy fire condition and a dangerous fire condition.
The architect Richard Gage is not impressed. He says the smoke on the south side may not be from Tower 7 at all.
This is indicative of a negative pressure which drew the smoke from the World Trade Center 6 or 5 that was burning quite severely. So if that photo was of smoke, it would have to be coming from every window. But there was no fires from every window, and right around the corner where the smoke stops, there's no fires, and there's no visible flames in any of that smoke. So it appears to not be coming from World Trade Center 7.
But what about the speed and neat symmetry of the collapse?
The penthouse dropped, and then the entire perimeter of the main building begins and goes straight down in 6.5 seconds, which is virtually free fall speed.